What's going on, guys? It's Kyle Carroll from MyMMAnews.com and Carroll's Corner MMA Podcast. Today we are joined by ring announcer, actor, stuntman Steve Mason. Steve, how you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you today?
I'm doing wonderful. I appreciate you coming on. Steve, I wanted to get into, I know there's been some great fights. You've been a ring announcer for the last, for a lot of shows actually on Long Island. You bounce around between organizations.
Yeah.
First of all, tell us what do you like about the Long Island scene right now?
Well, what I like about being an announcer is this: I get to be in the ring with all the fighters, and my face looks as pretty as it does when I leave as when I enter the cage. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I was an amateurly trained martial artist for most of my life, and going down that route of professional fighting just wasn't in the cards for me. I have a tremendous amount of respect for all the fighters, all the camps, all the coaches. The fighters, people don't realize what it takes to get in that ring and all the dedication and the sacrifice. And so there's also a camaraderie between the fighters. There's a lot of sportsmanship. There's a lot of, we see it all the time. Sometimes a fighter's, he's or she is disappointed with the judge's decision or a judge's call, but they still have that sense of brotherhood or sisterhood, if you will, when they're in the fight. And that sportsmanship to me speaks volumes, because that's what it's about. We have to learn from our mistakes in life, and whether you're an actor or a podcast video supporter or a fighter or a promoter, we have to just learn from our mistakes and move forward.
Absolutely. And like as you know, I do the commentary for the Jackhammer Promotions. I also do for Upstate for Cage Wars, and I kind of wanted to bring understanding to the fans what it all involves in order to put on a show. And I kind of wanted to start tackling the different like jobs you would say.
There's just the different aspects.
Yeah, the different aspects of the show, and ring announcers a huge one. And I think having a quality ring announcer for a show is very important to get the crowd involved, get people into it. As everyone knows, Bruce Buffer and his brother Michael Buffer. What made you decide, you know what, that's what I want to do? I want to be a ring announcer. I know you said you have the amateur training in mixed martial arts, but what?
I'm sorry to cut you off. One of my very good friends is a coach over at Vamos.
Okay.
And they bring a lot of fighters to Jackhammer and to the other promotions on the island. And he's been telling me for years. He's like, Steve, you have the look, you have the voice, you should be in there. And I never thought anything about it until the first time I was able to do it, and I fell in love with it. It's like you said, it's important to have somebody with a clear voice and somebody that you can understand, even if there's a poor mic setup in any venue.
Absolutely.
A good speaker should still be able to be heard. And I was at a weigh-in today, and it's also important in my eyes anyway, and it seems to be with a lot of the fighters that I announce, that I'm in their face. I get right up in there and I try to get them as pumped as possible, because they're soldiers going to war. That's the way I look at it, and it's like, you need some type of motivation to get in there and to do it. And if you have somebody that's announcing your name and feeding you, I don't want to say feeding your ego, but, feeding that sense of self, to hear your name coming out through the speakers. And, and as you've seen me do many shows, I put a lot of energy into it. And I like those fighters to remember who I am as much as I remember who they are.
I agree 100%. And you're talking about like the pride, right? Like what would you be the most prideful thing about? Your name, right? So when you hear your name being blasted through those speakers, there's got to be some adrenaline just pumping through your veins.
Sure,
when you hear your name, your first name, a nickname that they gave you, because that's how you represent yourself inside the cage, and then your last name. That's definitely got to be something to get you going for sure.
Absolutely. And that's why I make it a point to be at all the weigh-ins, because I want to speak to the fighters. I want to know what camps they're working with. I want to know if they have a nickname. If there's a weird last name, I don't want to say weird, but if there's a name that's not easily pronounced, like Smith, I want to make sure I can speak to the fighter and say, hey, listen, what's the correct pronunciation of your name? And I think that goes far beyond just being an announcer. I think that has something to do with a human element,
Mm-hmm.
that I show that I care a little bit about how it is that you pronounce your name. You know what I mean? So
Absolutely.
I take pride with that, and I really like to, anything I do in life, I like to do it to the best of my ability. And that might be subjective because everybody's got a different best, but I try to bring to the table everything that I can to be the best person inside that ring and outside that ring.
Absolutely. And you're talking about doing your best at whatever you do. And for those who don't know, Steve is a stuntman and an actor. I'm going to pull up on the screen right here your IMDB page. And for those who don't know, it's the Internet Movie Database. And then you can see the several movies and TV shows that you're part of. Gotham and Power. Those were some pretty big time shows. Right now, they're still going. So, Steve, tell us a little bit about how you got into acting and then what it's like being on set.
Okay, so people say, how'd you get into stunts? And I say, well, I fell into it. And no pun intended, but that's really how it happened. I'll go back, just long story short, is I was actually a trained singer, classically trained vocalist, and I thought I was going to opera as a basso profundo, like the lowest bass register voice.
Okay.
And this was back in 2005 or 6, and I had a freak accident that both my lungs collapsed, and I ended up in the hospital for a month in a coma. And they had to emergency intubate me, which is like jamming a tube down your throat to let you breathe. And when they did that, they cut one of my vocal cords. So singing career instantly over. And I had 2 surgeries since. I had years of therapy to get my voice back to at least to a point where I can use it. I don't sing anymore, but I wasn't even able to speak for months. And if you're a singer, that your voice is everything. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
take a mechanic's tool set away from him, and what is he? You know what I mean? So to take my voice from me was like, I really thought I was in a dark place for quite a while there. And they said that the surgeries that they gave me could have actually, did further damage and wouldn't have allowed me to speak ever again. So I said,
Geez.
you know what? I said, I don't care. I said, I don't want to be piggish or egomaniacal, but I'd rather be dead than to not have a voice. So they did the surgeries, and thank God, here we are, and I have most of my chops back. But during that interim period where I was doing the surgeries and the vocal therapy, I had a good friend of mine who I was actually in a band with, and he's like, Steve, he's like, you have that type A personality. You're always going, and you need to be able to find an outlet that you'll be able to release some of that energy. He's like, why don't you take an acting class? And I was like, oh, okay, whatever. And the first class I took, I was instantly hooked. And to me, it was like liberating, because I always thought of the best way to describe it is, if you're an actor or an actress, you're bearing your emotions to your audience. To be a singer is bearing your emotions while you're naked. So it's actually a lot easier for me. It came much more naturally to act as opposed to sing. And because I had the background in training and martial arts, and I have a very, very strong work ethic. People that know me know that I'm a very hardworking person, and take pride in that. I was brought up by my stepfather who said, no matter whether you're sweeping the floors or turning the keys to the building, you gotta do the best job you can. And I took that to heart forever, and I keep it with me. And where the hell was I going with that? I don't even remember.
How you got into the stunt, being a stunt
Oh, right.
man.
So with the work ethic, that's how it was. So before I was in the Screen Actors Guild, which is the union for actors and performers, before I was in the union, I worked with a production company, did some non-union television work, and fast forward like 2 or 3 years later, and I was in the union, and I had submitted for, I don't even think it was an agent at that time. I don't think I had an agent at that time, actually, but I think I submitted for some work, and they called me up and they're like, look, we remember you and how you were on set, and we think that you can handle this. It's a stunt job. And I said, hey, listen, I don't have any stunt experience. I have some fighting experience, but, don't worry about it. You'll be fine. So now it's kind of a funny story within our community of stunt performers and actors is people that know me, like, if you don't get along with me, there's something probably wrong with you. Because I'm straight, I'm authentic, I give it to you how it is, and most people respect that. So I get along with everybody, all walks of life, all races. None of that means anything to me.
Mm-hmm.
But I was on this set for the very first time doing stunt work, and the other stunt performers wouldn't give me the time of day. They were like so cold and like cold shoulder. And I was like, wow, like I thought like these guys are assholes, excuse the language. I thought these guys were jerks, you know what I mean? So and it was a very, very long day. I don't know if you remember the show. I'm not sure if it's on. It might still be on, but last week tonight with John Oliver.
Oh yeah, yep.
So that was my first stunt job, and it was actually the pilot of that show before that show got picked up. It was the very first episode, and right before we were supposed to go on to perform, I went up to the coordinator, and the coordinator is like the boss of the stunt people on the set.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to him and I said, listen, I'm going to be honest. I've never done stunt work. I have a little bit of fighting background, and I don't want to, A, I don't want to get hurt. B, I don't want to look stupid. And C, and more important, I don't want you to look stupid. And his frown turned into a smile, and he gave me a hug. And he said, I want to let you know that your honesty just saved you 20 years of pounding the pavement. Turns out that they saw my name on the call sheet. The call sheet is the paperwork that says who's going to be the actors and performers on set that day. And they thought that I lied myself into saying I was a stunt guy before and it's like, it's such a tight knit community that every stunt performer knows everybody from here to Georgia to LA. We're all on the same team, So when they saw my name and they didn't know who I was, they were like, who's this asshole? Who's this guy, trying to lie his way onto the set? So bottom line is with that, the guy ended up taking me under his wing. He trained me for free at his facility upstate and introduced me some of the most legendary performers and legendary coordinators, guys that did all the Sopranos, the guys that did Goodfellas, guys that did My Cousin Vinny.
Awesome.
Like all these people, I'm very close with all these guys now. And it's just an amazing community. And, it just further validates that being authentic and being honest and being upfront is the only way to be.
Mm-hmm.
Because had I gone in there with ego, and then when I said that to him, he goes, okay, now I'm going to give you a test. I'm going to make you do the hardest gag of the day. A gag is like the actual stunt.
Okay.
And so I was running in this cave and I got smashed with a brick and had to fall flat on my back on concrete with no mat. And they were like, you know what? You did a damn good job. So from there, that was how I got my start in, union stunt work. And the acting stuff is just, it's fun. It's the reality is that we spend more time looking for work than actually working.
Mm-hmm.
Between audition, I have just got 2 scripts sent over to me that I have auditions to take care of. And it's like, all right, you know what? And you don't get them all, but it's hard to, especially in the beginning, it's very hard to remove yourself from that because you take it personal. Like, why didn't they pick me? Was I not good looking enough? Was I not tall enough? Was I not short enough? Was I not heavy enough? Skinny, too skinny? You get in your head and so that's my story.
Oh, that's pretty sweet. Like thinking about doing the stunts, you see some crazy stunts in there. Thinking about how that goes, like, do you prepare yourself mentally for like the more physical stunts, or is that something?
So a saying that we have as performers is 8 out of 10 times you could hire anybody to do our job. It's those 2 out of 10 times that sets us apart from the rest of the world. I have a certification in jumping off a 30-foot building. I hate heights. I hate heights.
You're not going to catch me doing that.
Yeah, I get up there and I go, you know what? My brain says, logically, Steve, you could be just as charming with your feet on the ground down there. You don't have to jump over this building. So that and fire's a pretty cool one. You know, I mean, I've done full body flame.
That's wild.
And what you don't understand, and what most people wouldn't understand until you're in that, is fire is an element, and there's a dance between the performer and the flame. Now, if you're inside, it's one thing, but if you're outside, you have to take into so many different considerations: the air, how light the air is or heavy. Is there any wind? Because if you turn toward the wind, you suck in the flames, you'll burn your lungs out and die right there. So you have to know. Now, you have to know to dance with the flame and to let it go, you know, to trail. When you see people on fire, you see the flames behind them. So you have to learn how to trail the flame. And then on top of that, you say, holy shit, I'm on fire. You know what I mean? Like the brain doesn't comprehend. One of my friends who's Frank Alfano, he is the authority in firework in New York. He's actually one of like 3 people in the country that's allowed to make their own gel. Gel is what actually is the flammable liquid that they put on you.
Okay.
So he's one of a select few that's actually allowed to make his own gel, and he's recognized as a true expert in fire. But he said to me, he said, Steve, he goes, you know, there's something very, very strange about being on fire. He said, the first time, he said, I've been on fire 100,000 times, right? Whatever, you know, thousands of times, I should say. And he said, this one job, I was like any other day on fire, but they had me outside, and I had to walk past this deck, like on the outside of a house. And he said it was the very first time that I caught with the peripheral vision the reflection in the window of the house and saw myself on fire.
Oh, jeez.
He's like, I didn't even think. I jumped in the pool. He said, it's just that your brain says you're not supposed to be on fire. Get out.
Yeah, just natural instinct.
Exactly. And this is a guy who does, like when I say I've done full body, that's arms, chest, stomach, legs, front and back. Not face. He does face flames, which is just,
Jesus.
Yeah, man, you have to be able to control breath. And there's so many, it's like, I was on set. Do you remember the show Kevin Bacon did a few years back? That was The Following.
Oh yeah, I love that show.
Okay, so I did a few episodes of that show, and
one of the serial killer.
Yeah. One of the episodes that Joe, I think, was like the main, right? He was the killer.
Joe Carroll was actually it's my last name, which I thought was hilarious.
Oh, your Uncle Joey.
Uncle Joey's killing everyone.
So there was an episode where one of his supporters doused herself with gas or some flammable liquid and lit herself on fire. Now, she was a pro, or she's alive, thank God, but she's a pro, somebody who's done this a million times, but she almost lost her life that day.
Jesus.
And because the difference of a safe fire burn and 3rd-degree burns is about about 2 seconds. That 2 seconds of being, you know, because the gel is flammable, but it also keeps you protected. So once you burn through that, then you get to your skin. So they had a lot of professionals, a very, very talented safety crew. That's like, safety is the biggest thing, especially when it comes to things like that with fire. But she was on fire for 2 seconds too long.
Oh, jeez.
And could have been a disastrous ending. Thank God that she had a very talented crew with her to keep her safe. You know, so again, it's just, when you said, is there planning that goes on? The planning is sometimes longer than the actual work, you know, and the preparation is longer than the work. It's like, there's an episode that I did of Blue Bloods back a few years ago. And you know the show?
Yep.
Okay.
I've watched it a few times.
Yeah. So there's this, in, I think it was season 6, which was like 3 years ago now, or 4 years ago. They had a serial killer on that show. And we actually hold the record for having the ugliest, most brutal fight on that show in the 10 years it's been on. And I got thrown through. I was doubling the main actor, so I was the one that did all the hard work, getting thrown through a wall and a lot of fun stuff. Actually, if you go, I think it's on. I think that clip is actually on either IMDB or at least it's on my own website, which is imstevemason.com.
Okay.
And yeah, feel free to plug that.
Absolutely.
And yeah, everything is basically I am Steve Mason at all the social medias and the website. But that fight is about, I think it's like 1 minute and 40 seconds on film. But it took us 12 hours to film it. And it took about 14 and a half hours to rehearse it. Wow. Yeah. So it's like people don't realize how much work goes into something to see sometimes seconds on film.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's interesting. And you have to love it. Yeah, you have to love it. You know what I mean? It's like we have a deep passion for it, and
that's awesome. Yeah, that's definitely it's crazy to think about that, how much you spend 14-hour plus days for a couple minutes of film, and that's just insane.
Exactly. It's to give you a rough idea, on average, most episodic shows that are on weekly as episodes, a 60-minute hour-long show is really 48 minutes of content. Right?
Wow.
So because you have commercials and all that other stuff. So it's 48 minutes of content for a 60-minute show. Those shows they all film on an 8-day schedule. So like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. That's the episode.
Okay.
Those 8 days, you have anywhere between 14 to 18-hour days. So what's that? 96 hours, 14 times 8, 112 hours. 112 hours for 48 minutes worth of content. It's insane.
Yeah.
Insane.
That is.
The only show that does it, there's 2 shows right now that do it in less time, and that's The Blacklist and the original Law and Order SVU.
Okay.
It's because those shows have been on so long, they're like a cookie cutter at this point. So those 2 shows are the only shows in New York that film almost religiously 12-hour days. So they get it done in 12-hour days, 8 days, as opposed to the other guys are 14 to 18 hours.
So they have everything in place, what they want to use already, because it's been going on forever.
Exactly.
Gotcha. Well, what kind of advice would you give to someone that's 1, wants to be a ring announcer, 2, wants to be an actor?
Well, I would say, to find something you're passionate about and to put your heart and soul into it. Strive to be your best, not the best. Ring announcing is completely different. The pay scale is so much less than it is for me. When I feel like I could be washing dishes sometimes when I'm doing these shows. And there's nothing wrong with washing dishes, by the way, Kyle. I don't want you to think that I'm above anybody. I wash dishes.
No, I totally get what you're saying.
I wash dishes in restaurants, and I respect those people too, because I want to eat on a clean plate. So, no, but you can't do it for the money. You have to do it for the love of the job.
Absolutely.
And, as a performer, as an actor, and as a stunt performer, and as a cage announcer, I'm still trying to find my way, and I'm still honing my skills all the time. So I would say that to anybody that wanted to do either of the 2 job paths, career paths, if you will, is to try to find the best teacher. And sometimes that teacher is somebody that has already paved the way. Look at Bruce Buffer or Michael Buffer. They have 2 very completely different styles of announcing, but those are the 2 highest paid guys. They get paid $100,000 per event.
It's not a bad gig.
It's not bad for a couple hours, and they get flown to wherever,
Yep.
And Bruce is killing it because he's the brain. I don't know if you know the story, but he's actually the brain between him and his brother. And he was the one that got Michael to trademark the Let's Get Ready to Rumble. He made them $400 million in the last 7.5 years.
Jesus.
Yeah, from those 5 words. Yeah, 5 words.
Good for them.
Exactly. So you can't do it for, listen, everybody, myself included. I go, okay, well, at what point is Jackhammer going to go from Mulcahy's to Nassau Coliseum?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like I'm looking for the next biggest show too, and I go in, and like I said, very little money, but I have a passion for it. So I would just, I would definitely recommend to anybody, find what it is that you love to do, and then try to be your best. And that's the only thing you could ask of yourself.
Absolutely. Steve, I appreciate coming on. One last question before I let you go. I ask fighters this all the time. What is one thing about you that nobody knows, but you would like to share with everyone?
Well, there's not a lot that people don't know about me, because I, other than also announcing and performing and acting and all that stuff, I also pre-pandemic, travel the country speaking to schools and trying to help bring awareness to suicide awareness and substance abuse prevention, with the little tykes anywhere from 5th grade up to high school and college.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another website I have, which is toughtopics.org. And that's basically my whole life story. It's been an interesting journey, to say the least. I went from being on top of the world and, making very, very, very good money and doing a lot of things and having several properties. And then I lost it all. And it was partially because of my substance abuse that was very heavy for many years. But now I've been clean about 10 years. And so anybody that wanted to, something that nobody knows about me, I'll tell you this: most people don't know that I run a very successful cosmetic company.
Oh, wow. All right.
So it's Clever Cosmetics, both with a K for Clever, K Cosmetics. And I have a pretty successful side hustle. So that would be something, I guess, that most people don't know about me.
Awesome. Yeah, I didn't know anything about that. Awesome. Well, hey, I appreciate coming on and chatting it up with me and
absolutely, man.
going
Listen,
into
I just
details.
want to say to you that I'm honored that you chose me, and it's been my pleasure to be here with you. So I appreciate the opportunity. And you're going to be at the event tomorrow?
I will be there tomorrow. Yes.
Perfect. What time are you getting there?
Probably, I think when they start, doors open at 6. I think first fight's at 6:30.
Yeah.
So probably going to be there around 4:35.
Yeah. Well, I'll be there at the same time.
Awesome. We'll look forward to seeing you there, Steve. It's been a pleasure as always, and looking forward to the great night of fights tomorrow night.
Absolutely. It's going to be a great card. Thank you so much again, Kyle, and I will look forward to seeing you tomorrow.
Thank you. Have a great one.
All right, you too, brother.